So here in this topic we will be starting with teaching aptitude. So this module will be dealing with what teaching is, the concept of teaching, the objectives of teaching, some definitions of teaching, and then we will move on to different levels of teaching. So what is teaching? We will dive directly into the subject. Teaching is one of the instruments of education to impart the understanding and skill. Teaching is a process in which one teaches or instructs, and the other individual learns or studies. So it means that it is considered as an act of imparting knowledge or an act of imparting instructions, to give instructions. And the teaching, some definitions are there, I will read it out to you. Teaching is an intimate contact between the more mature person and a less mature one. So by getting knowledge or by teaching, one person, a more mature or a more knowledgeable person gives his knowledge or gives his maturity, gives his wisdom to a less mature one. So by teaching or by learning, a less mature one will actually develop and become a more mature one. One other definition, and an important definition, is teaching refers to the activities that are designed and performed to produce change in a student's behavior. So they should actually be a positive change in a student after the teaching process is complete. So whenever a teaching process is there, we are imparting knowledge, fine, we are imparting wisdom, fine, but there should actually be a change in the student's knowledge level. There should actually be a change in the student's behavior. Then only we can say that the teaching has actually met its objective. So what are some general objectives of teaching? It provides knowledge and skills, it develops understanding, it develops conceptual and intellectual subject specific skills. Then the change of student, that's what we said, there will be a change of behavior in the student, there will be a change of conduct in the student. It improves the learning skills of the student, including creativity skills, creative thinking and all. Then there is a subject knowledge. It provides values, morals and discipline in students, and it makes the student a social and an effective member of the society. So these are some objectives of teaching. And to sum up what we just said, teaching means it actually to impart the knowledge or impart education to another person. There will be a teacher, there will be a learner, and what happens is this teaching process should actually change the behavior. There should be a positive change in the behavior of the student. Now what are some characteristics of teaching? These are some very simple points that we can say. Teaching is a social process, it gives information, it should actually be an interactive process, not a one-way communication. It should actually be an interactive process where the student should be able to ask questions, where they should be able to give suggestions, where they should be able to give feedback. So it is an interactive process. It is a process of development and learning. It is an art as well as a science. It should actually cause a change in behavior. It is an occupation, it facilitates learning. It is a conscious as well as a subconscious process. Even when we are talking, students or other person can learn from us. So these are some characteristics or basic nature of teaching. And the thing is, the more important thing is the levels of teaching. So what are some levels of teaching? We have 3 levels of teaching: the MLT, ULT as well as the RLT, the memory level teaching, understanding level teaching and the reflective level of teaching. So we'll go with the first one, the memory level of teaching, the MLT. So the MLT, the main proponent or the main person behind this is Herbert, and the memory level teaching means just memorizing stuff, just remembering stuff. So it's all about cramming all the knowledge into your brain and then using it whenever needed. So that is not actually the main the main objective of learning is, but still this is a basic level of learning or a basic level of teaching. So only when you understand something, only when you remember something, only when you memorize something will you be able to understand it and create something new. So memory level teaching is the basic form of teaching, whereby it is a presentation of facts and information, and it is all about cramming information. So it is the main thing of memory level teaching is memorization or remembering. And this is the base of rote learning, ROTE, rote learning. Rote learning means repetition. So you keep on repeating anything until you memorize it, something we call as by hearting. So you by heart stuff, you learn it by heart and you keep on memorizing it, you keep on repeating it until you learn it by heart. You do not actually understand anything, you keep on repeating it until you learn it by heart. It provides the students the ability to retain and reproduce the subject. So they are actually able to memorize it and then reproduce whenever asked, but they are not actually able to understand it. It covers only the knowledge based objectives of Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is something that we learn in the coming modules, but it actually only the basic level of Bloom's taxonomy, that means the remembering stuff. So it is only based on identification, recalling and remembering. So only those stuff a student can do based on MLT, the memory level of teaching. So if we impart memory level of teaching, the student will only be able to identify, recall and remember stuff. He will just be able to remember some stuff, that is all. Then in this case the teacher plays a very dominating role, or the teacher is the most active person here. The students are just passive, the teacher acts as a dominator or an authority here. Then the role of teacher is prominent, as I said, it is very primary, and the role of the student is secondary. Then the thing is that memory level teaching does not improve intelligence or increase the student's capability. So it is just the only thing it will improve is the student's memory power. The only thing it will improve is the student's recalling ability or the retaining ability. It does not improve the student's intelligence, it does not improve the children's capability or anything like that. So this was, as I said, the main proponent is Herbert, and there are some classification of memory. So we are teaching about MLT, the memory level of teaching. So what are the different types of memory that we have? The first one is immediate memory. So when we study something and when we can recall it immediately, it is called immediate memory. Then we have permanent memory. Permanent memory means it's not that you have a permanent memory, it's just that you can recall it for a long period of time, very long period of time. Then we have personal memory. So if we recall something or we remember something based on a personal past experience, it is actually called personal memory. So sometimes an accident, so we may be able to recall it for a long period of time. It is because we have personally personally experienced it. So that is called personal memory. Then we have active memory. Active memory means it is an effort to recall things. So we studied something in the past and we are trying to recall it in the present. So in exam halls, that's what happens. Students they have learnt it by heart in the past and they are trying to recall it in the exam halls. That is the active memory. Passive memory means recalling the past experience without any effort. So they are not actually making an effort to recall something, it actually comes into their mind. That is called passive memory. Then we have mechanical memory or physical memory, in which the body has the habit of doing any task repeatedly. It means that sometimes you keep your alarm for 7 o'clock in the morning and you keep on doing that for 10 days or 15 days, and after that what happens is you wake up at 7 o'clock even before even if there is no alarm. So that is actually called a physical memory, where your physical body has after doing many things many times, after doing it repeatedly, you can do it even without any alarm or without any memory. The next one is rote memory. So in types of memory, the next one is rote memory, something we have already taught before. Rote memory means repetition, cramming facts without understanding. So keeping on repeating stuff and learning it by heart without understanding. And the last one is the logical memory. It is to learn something by using intellect and recalling it whenever needed. So these are some different types of memories under MLT, that is the memory level of teaching, which is the basic level of teaching, which we give it to smaller kids or small students because they can't understand everything. So instead of understanding, we try to memorize things, we try to make them remember things so that they can use this MLT as a base for understanding. So the second thing is, as I said, the understanding level of teaching, or the ULT. The main proponent or the main person behind this is Morrison. The main person behind memory level teaching was Herbert. The main person behind ULT or the understanding level is Morrison. And the memory level, for ULT to happen, what we need is MLT. So to understand something, we need to memorize it. To understand something, we need to be able to recall some stuff. So MLT is a prerequisite for ULT. Then the ULT helps to build the thinking level of students. So if the student understands something, he starts to think about it. So that is ULT, and he thinks about how these principles or how these concepts can be applied in different stages of his or her life. So that is actually the understand level teaching. So he or she understands something, he or she first memorizes something, then he or she understands it, then he or she starts to think of how they can be applied in real life. It focuses on mastery of the subject. He or she, the student, they try to become a master of the subject, they try to understand better. So it is actually subject centered. The student as well as the teacher play an active role in understanding level of teaching. The first thing, only the teacher played an active role, but here the student as well as the teacher plays an active role. And here mainly objective type questions or essay type questions are given to the students to check whether they have understood everything. So that is actually ULT, whereby the students understand things and they try to apply it into their real life situations. The student and the teacher, both of them play an active role so that the students can understand it better. And for ULT to happen, you need a basic form of MLT. You need a memory level teaching or a memory level learning to learn about ULT or the understanding level of teaching. Now according to ULT, Morrison, who is the main proponent behind this or who is the main person behind ULT, has divided understanding level into 5 parts. The first one is exploration, whereby we test the previous knowledge of the students. Then there is presentation, whereby the content is presented for the students. Then there is assimilation, where we go deep into the content, generalization, self studies, individual activities. So the student goes deep into the content or deep into the subject. Then there is organization, whereby the students are provided with the occasion for representation, means the students are given time for organization and presenting into the class. And the recitation, whereby the students present it orally. So there are 5 levels of understanding to check understanding. The first one, as I said, is exploration, to test the previous knowledge. Second one is presentation, whereby the teacher presents something to the students. The third one is assimilation, whereby the student self studies or studies by himself or herself. The fourth one is organization, where the student is given some time or some situation or some occasion or some opportunity so that he or she can organize all the stuff that he has learnt or he or she has got from the teacher. And the last one is recitation, where the student, after getting everything, recites in front of the whole class or gives it in front of the whole class. So if a student does this, we can know that they have understood everything or they have reached the ULT, which is the understanding level of teaching. The last one is the reflective level of teaching or the RLT. This is the most highest part of teaching or the highest part of learning. If a person or if a student has RLT, we would know that he or she has understood everything, he or she knows everything, and we could be very satisfied with our teaching process. So reflecting something means giving a careful thought, much more than understanding. This is a bit higher level than understanding, and the main proponent or the main person behind this is called Hunt. So what happens is, it talks about both understanding level and the memory level, and it is mainly problem centric. So it means that if a problem is there in front of us, how will we tackle that problem? How will we use our memory level understanding and the memory level teaching or the memory level learning and the understand level of teaching, and then how can we use this to overcome this problem? How can we use this to solve the problem? That is actually what is there in RLT. Its main objective is to develop problem solving abilities or problem solving skills. The first one was to memorize, the second one was to understand, and here it is to apply and solve problems actually. Here the student is the primary member and the teacher is a secondary member. In memory level, the teacher was very active or the teacher was primary and the student was secondary. In the understanding level, both the student and the teacher was active or primary. Here in this case, the student is active and primary, but the teacher is actually passive or secondary. The classroom environment is to be open and independent. So it should not be a restricted classroom. It should not be a lecture type, the students should sit in complete silence, they should not talk. No, it should be an open environment where the students should be able to talk among themselves, not just chatting. They should be able to discuss among themselves, they should be able to ask questions to the teacher. So only then we can achieve true RLT. Then the essay type questions or the essay type tests are used to evaluate whether a student has reflective level or not, and the teaching level is not teacher centered, it is not subject centered, it is actually learner centered. So here the student, we are actually able to understand whether the student has got the ability to solve a problem, where the student, if the student has got the ability to tackle a problem. So only if the student memorizes something, after that he understands something, and only after that he will be able to reach the true the reflective level of teaching or the reflective level of learning. So we should as teachers, what we should do is we should actually teach them in this way, where a student is able to apply whatever he has memorized and whatever he has understood, and then use it as a problem solving skills. So these are the three types of teaching, or the three levels of teaching, whereby the first one is the memory level of teaching, whereby a student just memorizes and recites something, rote learning, keeps on repeating stuff. The second one is understanding level, where the student understands something and gives a thought about it, tries to apply it in real life. And the third one is reflective level of teaching, whereby the student uses his memory, uses his understanding, and then tries to solve problems with it. So these are the three levels of learning. Now what are some basic requirements? So apart from that subject, we have got one or two more things about teaching. The first one is, what are some basic requirements of teaching? So before teaching, what do we need in teaching? The first one is a teacher and a student. Obviously we need a teacher for teaching and a student for learning. The second one is that it should be a continuous process. So because it is a continuous process, we need patience, we need determination, we need focus, and we need motivation. So it is a continuous process, it has to be continued for a long period of time. Right from LKG, a student is studying till his plus 12th standard, then he is going for graduation, post graduation, maybe MPhil, maybe his doctorate or PhD. So it is actually a very long and continuous process, a process called teaching or a process called learning. It is actually a very long process. A teacher starts teaching from LKG students, or high school students, high secondary, senior secondary students, college students, PhD students. So it actually is a very long process. So you need to have a proper amount of determination, patience, and focus. Now there should be interest in subjects by both the students and the teachers. There should be classroom activities, there should be discipline, and there should be some evaluation, some formative evaluation, some end semester exams, maybe some class tests, class quizzes, and something like that, and there should be effective teaching methods. So these are some basic requirements of teaching that we need in teaching. The last one is the principles of teaching. So there are some principles that we have to follow while teaching, because only if we follow these principles are we able to fully understand what is there in teaching or how we should actually teach. The first one is the principle of activity. There should be some activities in class, otherwise the class gets boring. There should be something that makes the student interested. There should be something that keeps the student interested in the class. That is the principle of activity. So while telling about the principle of activity, there is a quote actually: tell me I forget, teach me I remember, involve me I learn. So when we tell something to a student, he forgets it, he or she forgets it. When we teach something, they might remember it, fine, but when we involve them in something, they actually learn something. So we need people, we don't need students to forget, we don't need students to remember, we actually need students to learn stuff. So if we want to learn, we actually have to involve them in activities. That is the principle of activity. Next one is the principle of interest. So if the students are not interested, we have to actually develop their curiosity, ask questions, tell them stories, give them quizzes, debates, something. So involve them in something, or give increase or develop their curiosity first, then jump into the subject matter or jump into the lessons. Then principle of linking with life. So if we link something, if we give some real life examples, if we give some real life case studies, so it will actually make them more interested. So that is a principle of linking with life. Then the principle of aim. Remind them of their aim regularly, frequently, maybe it's their parents' wish, maybe it's their hunger to succeed, maybe about the salary. So remind them that the aim of study is to have a better life. So you keep on reminding them that, they'll become more interested and more devoted. Then principle of selection. Selection here means the selection of study materials. So always the study materials that we use and the study materials that we recommend to the students, it should always be updated. We should not teach about the things that are long back, the things that are outdated, the things that are obsolete. No, we should actually teach them stuff that are very much updated and very much linked with the new generation, and how to tackle competition in the new world and all. So the study materials should actually be selected in such a way that it should be very much updated. So that is the principle of selection. Then the principle of planning. So we have course plans, lesson plans, how to schedule our tests, when to give assignments, when to give projects, what project to give, in how much time the syllabus should be completed, what should I teach this day, what should I teach this month. So there should be a proper planning in the teaching process. That is called the principle of planning. Next we have the principle of division. So how to divide the portions. So in this month what should I take, in this day what should I take, when should I, after how much portion should I give a test, after how much portion should I give an exam. So dividing portions accordingly comes under the principle of division. Next we have the principle of revision. So what happens is, they are all humans, everyone is human. So what happens is they tend to forget. So for that we have to give regular revision. So revision may be in form of just revising stuff, or it can be in the form of a revision test or something like that. So what happens is, so that they don't forget. So what happens is they forget. So to tackle that, for the ability to forget, or tackle the frequency of forgetting, what happens is we give frequently, or we give regular tests to them. Then the principle of democratic dealing. So what happens is, most of the teachers, or many teachers, what happens is they act in an authoritative way. At least before and all, teachers used to act in an authoritative way, but now the students are also not like that. So we are entering a new era of teaching and learning, whereby there should be a democratic dealing. The students should be consulted before they are given any topics. The students should be asked before they are given any topics. So an authoritative way of teaching will not go anymore. So that is the principle of democratic dealing. Next one, the principle of motivation. So every student is different. As we said, every student is different. So what happens is, a motivation should be given. Every skill, so we have students with different skills, it should be encouraged. We have students with different possibilities or different opportunities, it should be encouraged with proper praise or proper reward or something like that. So a student who is motivated will actually listen to the class more. Then the principle of recreation. So as we said above, they are human beings, they are bound to get tired. So there should be a resting time. There should be a recreation time, so that they are not bored, they are not tired, exhausted or fatigued. So there should be given some recreation time or some leisure time. If you get 1 hour of teaching, don't spend the whole 60 minutes teaching. The students are bound to get bored. So you give them some minutes for leisure time or some resting time, so that they can refresh themselves. That is the principle of recreation. Next, the principle of individual differences. So that is something that we told in the principle of motivation. No two students are alike. Some students may have different, some students may have more intelligence, some students may have less intelligence, some may have prior knowledge. So you actually have to consider them, consider the individual differences, and then apply your teaching methods. That is the principle of individual differences. The next one is principle of sympathy. A teacher should be caring, a teacher should be kind, a teacher should be sympathetic, a teacher should be empathetic. So being kind, being kind, selfless, being caring, being sympathetic, it's all part of a teaching process. So that is the principle of sympathy. And the last one is the principle of creativity. We should actually enhance the students to be creative, for critical thinking, for creativity. Don't suppress it. There are teachers that say that, okay fine, you do not talk, just listen to what I say. No. Students are actually more creative than the teachers. There are students who are able to critically think more than the teachers. Don't suppress it, and enhance their ability. Motivate them to actually think creatively, to think critically, so that they become better for tomorrow. That is what, as we teachers, that we actually yearn for, or that is what we work for. So let students be creative, let them critically think, don't suppress it. So these are some different principles of teaching. You will have your notes with you, have a look at it.